Welcome, everybody. This is Beer Guys Radio. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. We greatly appreciate it. We are going to jump into the show. If you have a comment on anything we're talking about, or let us know what you're drinking, any thoughts, feel free to put it in the comments. Might be a little trickier for us to respond this week. Mo Mike Nate is out this week, so Brian and I are handling this ourselves. I think we can do it. I have confidence in our abilities, but may not be able to get to the chat quite as much. But anyhow, we're going to jump into the show, and we'll talk with you soon. Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this week for cold beer and hot. And that's HAWT, Brian.
Yes.
Conversation. It is. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Tim. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. I'm making it okay. We made it through the storms that we had here earlier in the Atlanta area. It got stormy, and I just saw we got a freeze warning coming up. So we're all over the place here. It's that time of year. It's cold and rainy and windy, and then it's 70 and sunny, and then it's a freeze warning.
Yeah, I got that today. I had a wind advisory for like a day or two, and I did hear some blusteriness. I've been so busy. I haven't really even gone outside in a couple of days. The only thank goodness for Instacart. Otherwise, there would be no food in the house. There would be nothing going on. So I've heard noise outside, and sometimes it sounds like a car engine, which frequently happens where I live, and sometimes it sounds like storms. But freeze warning. I'm like, what month is this? Where even am I? Why is it freezing suddenly? So
Brian's like, I heard there's weather out there, but I have no proof of it.
I could not vouch for it.
It could be 90 degrees out there. I really don't know.
Could be.
Just don't
could be.
Yeah. Well, Brian, we did a thing here last weekend. It was Georgia Beer Day. And we have that once a year where our breweries really just celebrating your local beer. They make a fancy glass with some cool. I'm actually drinking. Can't see on the podcast here, but I've got I think this is my 2024 Georgia Beer Day glass. I didn't get one this year yet, Brian, because they were gone by the time we made it to the brewery. So we'll have to do that later. But of course, one of the reasons that promoting Georgia beer, and that's something, that our guild does with the breweries. And we talked, it's only been 2 weeks that we shared about the beer bill that we had here, and it's dead already, y'all. Just it didn't take any time. Actually, the week after we did that, Thomas was nice enough to come on the show and talk about that, and it didn't make it out of the committee hearing. It didn't get a hearing to go to vote. So and unfortunately that's been kind of the last several years here. I think 2017 I think they got the transfer thing. I don't think that went up in a bill. I don't remember that one, but like letting breweries with multiple locations transfer beer between locations.
Oh yeah, that was the thing.
There.
I want to say that the brunch bill or something like that came along later on after Sunday sales, and that might have been like 2019, and that may have been the last significant actual beer change. I know we were talking about it, and I think that it happened in 2 increments, and all that was adjusting the hours you could sell beer on Sunday. So it wasn't a really big win for anybody, but it was just it basically made brunch more fun when people went out on Sunday. Honestly, is all it did, and we had to fight for that too. Apparently,
I think it was like 1:00 on Sunday was the earliest you could sell, or something like that, and people were like, "Come on, y'all. Let me get my mimosa. Let me get my Bloody Mary."
It's called brunch. Brunch is like noon.
11 a.m. to 2 or so is brunchish time. Maybe 10 if you're an early bird, you can catch brunch then. But
I like how the politicians see that treats like you drinking at brunch like it's plutonium. You got to careful procedures. We got to be really cautious with this. People might just explode. Like they might drink a mimosa and just die right there in the spot.
That's it.
Like what is even going on here? Come on, people. It's orange juice and champagne. Come on, how dangerous is this?
It's like feeding a gremlin after midnight. There's an old cultural reference. See who gets that one. But that if you drink alcohol before 11, you turn into a gremlin. I think
that's right.
Was the belief. And
probably
there may be some of them that still do believe that, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
But anyhow, beer bill was shot down, so no self distro for our breweries this year. But they'll go back and fight again. And you just keep fighting. That's all you can do, Brian. You just got to keep fighting every time. Well, Brian, let's talk about our beers of the week. What are you getting into?
So I started off with a Bierstadt Lagerhaus, a slow pour pils. I love that. It's a German pilsner. It's quality. Just it's a great beer. If you see it, go grab some. If you're lucky enough to have it, nearby for you. I'm getting into now Wild Leap Alpha Abstraction Volume 28, which I believe is the new one. It's the one that had the bergamot hops.
The bergamot hops, okay.
AKA OAF or Orange AF hops. And so, yeah, that citrusy, orangey for sure. Yeah, it's good. So I'm drinking that now. And later on, I plan to get into a Bissell Brothers Here's to Feeling Good All the Time double IPA. And that's I had to look that up. And I don't know my Seinfeld well enough, but that's a reference to an episode that had Kramer going out to a bar and having a good time. So I did watch the video clip and like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I can't wait to get into that. That may be a little after the show when we talk to the Patreon folks, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, the after party. What are you drinking, Tim?
Brian, I have from a little brewery called Old Nation, M43. I'm sipping an M43, which I remember we have stories about M43 when we were at the Juice. What was the name of the festival? Something Juice Fest.
Not the Juice Strikes Back, but
no, it was the first one. I forget
Day
what
of
they
the Juice or something.
That might be a Day of the Juice. That was a festival we had here, and Old Nation came in, and we were right next to their booth where we set up the Beer Guys booth. And when they got done, they gave us a whole case of these tall boy M43s, and we were crushing those. We had a good time with it. But that is a really nice, hazy IPA from Old Nation out of Michigan, if I remember correctly. I think they're a Michigan beer.
Do you roll? They are out of Michigan. Do you roll the can like it shows on the side, or you just pour it as is?
I forgot to roll the can, and I was looking at the can after I poured my beer. And I'm like, oh, right. So, but what I did is what was left in the can, I gave it a good swirl and topped my beer off with it there. So, Day of the Juice. Like yes, we have. Yeah, first. Patrick conversed that Day of the Juice and then Juice Strikes Back was that. So.
That makes sense. Juice Strikes Back does sound like a sequel type of name.
Yeah. And we've got questions about, it's that time of the year that you have to look at the clock and see what day it is to see whether or not you can feed your gremlins, because we have to worry about daylight savings time. So
they didn't make that clear, did they? In that movie, I'm like, it's just midnight. Like, yeah, but what happens when the time changes? It's still midnight.
Do they know the time zone? Do the gremlins' bodies know the time zone? Maybe they do. Maybe they're like atomic clocks, Brian.
Apparently they do. Yes.
Or maybe there's a lot of gremlin eating after midnight related accidents around the time change.
It could well be, yeah. I'll bet there's a period of time where you could get away with it depending on which way the clock is shifting, because they haven't fully adjusted. They still have a little jet lag, so that doesn't quite kick in, and they don't quite convert over to the little monsters.
Yeah. And then, like Patrick said, what about states that don't follow a time change? This sounds risky.
Oh, yeah.
Better stop feeding it at 10 a.m. like they were people trying to drink alcohol at brunch in Georgia.
Exactly right. Or, I mean, just step across that line. You can feed it when it's satisfied. You can bring it back.
Back. Yeah. A lot of rules there, man. Really tough. Well, Brian, a hot topic this week. And I just really can't even handle the state of our country at this time. And, we do our best not to get political on here, but there's stuff that crosses over and hits us. And this week, tariffs are all up in our faces. And we have seen a bunch of the information going around, of course, Mexico, Canada, and China, which we do a lot of trade with all of those countries. But the tariffs are on, and we're already seeing the effects of that, Brian. You want to give us an update on what that means?
Yeah. So the ones that were announced in February went into effect on March 4th. And apparently I don't know what they were looking for, but the negotiations that were happening that caused them to be delayed apparently did not go as desired by the Trump administration. So as before, the tariffs will be 25% on all goods from Mexico and Canada, with one caveat. I don't think this was in place before, but tariffs on Canadian energy imports will be 10% instead of 25%. Additionally, China will get hit with another 10% after the 10% that already went into effect on February, which sounds like a double whammy. But when I thought about it, I'm like, wait, so China's got a 20% tariff, but Canada and Mexico have 25% tariffs. So one sounded like they were getting punished more, but really they're not getting hit as hard in terms of tariffs. So the math is weird.
Interesting. Okay.
Canada has already announced 25% tariffs on U.S. goods effective immediately, or at least a certain number of millions of dollars of it. And I think more of it's going to come into effect. I'm sure that's a logistics and bookkeeping type of situation. Its speculation is that Mexico will follow suit with some retaliatory tariffs on Sunday. I don't know why Sunday, but that was specifically the day they mentioned. So that will likely probably happen. The Brewers Association believes these tariffs will make barley, aluminum, and energy more expensive for breweries. It seems unavoidable, as well as potentially resulting in reciprocal tariffs on U.S. beer and other alcoholic beverages sold in Canada and Mexico. We've seen tariffs from Canada already. Additionally, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imported to the U.S. from all other sources were delayed, but that could go into effect on March 12th, and that would definitely impact the cost of cans and kegs and brew houses and things like that. And federal agencies are investigating reciprocal tariffs, which would be imposed on countries who place tariffs or fees on U.S. goods imported into their country that are deemed to be kind of prejudicial or reasonable in nature. So there's no telling what the tariffs might be, but they're looking for them. And any of those reciprocal tariffs would be going into effect on April 2nd, if that actually does happen, if they find any. So we already saw a press release from I don't know how to pronounce her name. It looks like Souffle to me,
but it's part like Canada Malt.
Canada
is one of
Malt.
their companies. Yeah.
I think it's the parent company. It's like Soufflet or Souffle.
Souffle.
They own like 3 sub malting companies. Anyway, they've already put out a press release talking about the ways they are going to mitigate the effects of the tariffs. They say that the tariff won't impact their cost for freight, warehousing, and other supply chain expenses. So that's not going to change that. They've also taken steps to load a good amount of malt into the system ahead of the tariffs to delay any actual financial impact. I think they're possibly hoping here that the tariffs will only be temporary. That's kind of speculating, but that seems like or maybe they're just giving people a chance to adjust, make preparations for the upcoming expense increase of what's coming. So it could be either one of those. And it sounds like they're investigating some alternate sourcing arrangements that may allow them to sidestep tariffs in the future, but that part isn't clear. That it may be a case where and I'm just guessing here, where they run their malt through a third party that's in a different country and are able to sidestep the tariffs. I don't know. I don't know if the people looking into reciprocal tariffs will look into that as well and slap them there. But we may see a fair amount of that where, I don't know, things go through the Bahamas or something like that. And where people are able to sidestep a great amount of tariffs that way. I suspect a lot of people are investigating it, looking for ways to do it. So, yeah, it's happening. We don't know exactly what the full impact is going to be. We have a lot of people looking into it. We've got a lot of indications of people stockpiling stuff that is going to be tariffed and people pushing a lot of stuff into the system ahead of time. So we'll see. We might not feel much of it right away, but at some point we will.
They'll have to get it. You know what? This will have to be addressed, or it's going to hurt. And I think Trump had made a comment like there was going to be a little pain working through this, but in the long run, it's going to pay off for us. And I want to believe, Brian. I want to. That's all I can say about that. I don't. But we've already seen things like the alcohol stores, LCBO stores is what they're called in Canada.
Yeah.
It's liquor control board, and they've pulled. A lot of them have pulled American spirits off the shelves. And I think it was either Jack Daniels or Jim Beam made a statement that they're like, Canada basically pulling all our products hurts a lot more than these tariffs do. So they're not selling them at all. They have proposed not beer related, but there's now a proposed 100% tariff on Teslas in Canada.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And something I found out today that I was unaware of, but canola oil. and I forget what canola is actually a amalgamation of a few. It's Canada something something oil. It's a
Oh, is that what that is? I had
it's a
no idea.
processed from, I believe it's rapeseed oil is actually what it is. But someone posted that in restaurants, nearly everything you eat contains canola oil because it is low cost and I guess versatile and low cost, something like that. But they were talking about salad dressings, your fried foods, just uh, everything has canola oil in it. And they're like, so you just basically think about that from the very baseline, the oil. There's a 25% increase there on that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of repercussions I'm not sure everybody's thinking about. We talk about it like we dive into it with the aluminum for cans, the malt, and all that we're getting here. But there's a lot of things that it touches, especially when we talk China, Canada, and Mexico,
Yeah.
3 very big trade partners. So we'll
And
see.
here's the thing: when you put an extra 10% on energy that's getting imported, that's
Yeah.
going to affect a lot of small things in small ways, and that builds because everybody is, well, they're making their money off of what they're doing, so their costs go up, so they charge more. So at every step of the way, that energy is bumping up the price of everything.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see stuff go up in price. I'm not an economist, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out.
Well,
I'm
and
just
Canada's talked about cutting off the power that they're sending to the U.S. as well.
Are
So
they?
they're like, we'll
Okay.
just, we'll quit sending power to you then. You want
They're
to.
playing
So,
hardball. Okay. No, I
yeah.
mean, I get
Yeah.
it. I get
All right.
because
We'll
they've
see.
also, I think Trudeau also said that, like, I think he made an appeal to the U.S. citizens about what's going on and whatnot, and he says that something to the effect of this will hurt Canada, but it's going to hurt you guys too. So this is
Sure.
on your
Now, wait
administration
a
for doing
minute.
this. So
I thought he had made a vow to lower grocery prices.
wait for who? Oh, you mean Trump? Maybe he did.
Like
I
as
don't
part of
know.
the campaign there? I don't know. We'll
I
see what goes
I
on, man.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't follow any of the campaigns very closely because I don't believe anything any of the politicians say. They all make promises about stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, Tim. I'm watching and trying to figure it out just like everybody else is.
I can't figure it out, man. I'm watching, biting my nails, and I'm just along for the ride. Just
Yep,
trying to
yep.
have a beer, enjoy a good time there.
That's really all I want. Like I just
Yeah.
hope I can still afford beer at the end of this. That's really
Yeah.
all I'm worried about.
I care and have opinions a lot more, but I'm not going to get into it on our beer show.
Yeah.
That's basically it. So, but that said, Brian, it definitely impacts all of us. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens.
Indeed.
Monster Beverage, Brian, and they bought up a bunch of breweries. One of the big ones being Cigar City, that
Yes.
we all know and love there. But they had a rough fourth quarter. Things didn't go too well for old Monster there.
Yeah, their $330 million acquisition of the former Canarchy Craft Brewery Collective is not going well for them. So that what they bought was Cigar City, but also Oscar Blues, who I believe is even bigger than Cigar City. Deep Ellum, Perrin, Wasatch, and Squatters. They bought the entire thing back in, I think it was January of 2022, all the way back then. It's been a while. So Monster Beverage recorded a $130.7 million impairment charge on its alcohol brands in the fourth quarter of 2024, which includes both those Canarchy brands that I was just talking about, as well as Beast and Nasty Beast, which are their flavored malt beverages, so alcoholic flavored malt beverages. I'm not an accountant, so I hit up Google, and it tells me that an impairment charge is an accounting entry that reflects the reduction of value of a company's asset on a balance sheet versus its fair market value. So we're looking at their booze portfolio being worth a lot less now than it was. So
130.7 million, it sounds like.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So that's exactly what that means. The reasons given for the loss in value include operating and financial performance not meeting projections, which makes sense, and decreased projected performance going forward. So they don't even think this is going to turn around. I think it's still going to be pretty bad in the future. On top of that, Monster reported $4.1 million in excess alcohol brand inventory in the fourth quarter. So I guess that's just product that's sitting around and they can't sell. With total excess inventory for 2024 coming in at nearly $15 million, impacting their gross profit. But it's not all doom and gloom for Monster. Their energy drink sales are up. People are still drinking Monster Energy. And for the moment, those sales are more than enough to make up for the alcoholic beverage losses. Monster management was asked about the impact of tariffs on aluminum, and their response was, and this is before it actually went into effect, is your guess is as good as ours. That's basically what they said. But they do apparently have a hedge for that issue. They don't come right out and say it, but it seems like they probably have a can stockpile somewhere. So they probably have a lot of aluminum cans in warehouses. So I think they're ready in the short term for this. And then by the time it starts hitting them, they'll probably be ready for another increase in price. So they can just roll it into the next increase. That'd be my guess. I don't have any insider information at all. I just read an article. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is, man, you would have to have a lot of space to stockpile cans with as many beers as they can. And like for it to last any length of time at all.
Well, they do have
strategic can reserve, huh?
They do have a few breweries they completely shut down, so they basically could stuff
they
those
got
places
plenty of
full
storage
of cans.
space, right?
I forget. I think it's one of the Oscar Blues facilities they shut down, or maybe it was another one. Maybe it was Elm or something like Deep Elm. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if they've sold the property, but there's nothing happening there, so that's probably wall to wall aluminum cans right now, waiting to have Monster products put in
everywhere.
That'd be my guess. I mean, I don't have any proof, so
I'll believe you, Brian. I'll believe. Yeah, it sounds good to me. I believe you're you're correct. True. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that. Brian, you know something I love outside of beer is beer history or historical beer artifacts, things like that. We talked a few times about when we had Travis Rupp, the beer archaeologist, on the show, talking about that. I have a small curated collection of historical beer bottles and trinkets and that. I have an invoice from a brewery from like 1896 where they sold like a pallet of beer for $3.24 or something like that.
You that know, much, huh?
Just random things there. Yeah, something like that. That was actually kind of cool. One of our listeners wrote in. They're like, hey, I found this stuffed in some old books and I don't want it, but I feel it's something that may interest you guys. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I love that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But something that I would love to have in my collection, but I imagine I couldn't afford it. And even if I could, probably not for sale. But Isaac Newton's beer mug is going on display.
Yeah, this sounds like this is like it has to be like a fantasy novel or like a band name. But yeah, Isaac Newton's beer mug went on display at the Royal Society in London this week, along with other items from his collection and his personal stuff, including his death mask. So if you want to see his beer mug and what he looked like when he died, I guess you can go check that out. This is the first time the mug has been seen in public in 160 years. It's been described as a pint flagon, and it looks to me like something between a mug and a pitcher made out of a very well polished wood. It's a nice looking wooden vessel. We've got a picture in the notes that Tim can see. You'd agree, right? It looks nice. It's cool. It looks antique. Yeah.
It looks like something Isaac Newton would have enjoyed a pint out of. Like, I'm picturing all the guys at their local tavern with their little flagons,
I guess.
You know, that's like a beer stein today. It's got a lid on it too. The mug has a flap, and I was thinking you really need that, Brian, because you always talk about if there's a fruit fly anywhere within the county, they're going to find your beer. So you need a flagon with a little flip top on it.
I do, and that is absolutely true. If there is I'll be inside, and there'll be a single gnat in the entire house that came in on a bunch of bananas. It will die. It will find its course to die in not just my beer, but sometimes just my water. This is where I was meant to be, in this water. And I know there's been a few times where I wound up drinking them because, like, oh, that was definitely a bug. I'm like, and I didn't see it because they're little gnats. I hate that. It's just a thing that happens with me. I do have, and we're getting a little off topic here. I've got a coffee stein that I use from I forget the name of the company that does the thermoses. But the point of that is not to keep the bugs out. I don't have problems with them dying in my coffee typically. It's to keep the heat in. So I keep my coffee warmer for longer. I like that a great deal. So steins are a great thing. But anyway, So this particular Stein, Isaac Newton's mug, is significant not just because it was Isaac Newton's mug, but because many 17th century authors used beer in their ink, and Isaac Newton had 2 beer ink recipes in his writings. It's thought that most of his work was written down with beer ink, though I believe the article says they haven't actually proven that. They just speculate that that's the case. They need to do a little scientific analysis of the actual writing. The research seems to indicate that Isaac Newton wasn't a big drinker, and that's a little bit having to do with things that people have said in letters since his death. But his papers do contain many references to beer, ale, cider, and wine, including a discussion on the best apples to use when making cider. So we know he made that. And Newton also conducted beer-related experiments, including studies of fermentation. So my guess is, while his friends might not have realized he enjoyed the beer, he may have been more into it than they suspected. So
kind of sounds like he liked the fermented beverages there, Brian.
I think so.
Maybe all of his friends were raging alcoholics, so he had like 3 pints a night, and they're like, "Oh, does he even like beer?"
I don't think so. He's making super crispy ESBs, or like just low ABV stuff, and they're getting soused on the whatever crazy thing got thrown into a barrel. So,
and he had that big sweet flag in there. So they said pint, but that thing looks bigger than, maybe it's the scale of it, but it looks bigger than a pint to me.
Could be. It looks like that's probably maybe that's a 19.2 ounce vessel right there that we're looking at. That could be a vintage long beer.
Do you know the term "mind your P's and Q's"?
I've heard that. Yeah.
Do you know where it comes from?
P's and Q's.
You don't. I can tell you're thinking about it. So
no, I'm not.
So I've heard, and I can't validate this, but I've heard, and maybe it's, what is it called when someone backs into a story, like they make us, rather than it being the story, that there's a phrase. But anyhow, I'm told that in olden times that Zach West chimed in, pints and quarts. The P's and Q's were for pints and quarts that they served at the taverns. So when people got rowdy, they'd say, hey, you guys chill out and pay attention to your beers there, basically, mind your pints and quarts. So the phrase "mind your P's and Q's" comes from pints and quarts, and, chill out, brother.
In context, I actually was going to guess pints and quarts, because I may have actually heard that phrase before at some point in time, but I didn't realize that. So if you're getting a little crazy, which one's bigger? Quart's bigger than a pint. Yeah. So you're drinking quarts, knock it off, get back to pints.
And that's what and the point of me sharing that is that thing looks like it could be a quart, but I don't know. Because I know the British use pint. They've got, what's a British pint, like 42 gallons or something like that?
It's pretty close to
somewhere in there,
almost exactly that. I think.
So maybe that was it. He's like, I only had one beer. It's like,
this could be the very first growler too. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've seen one older than that.
Let's make up all kinds of historical stories about it.
Might as well. I mean, there's a lot of speculation whether or not he drank very heavily or not. It's just based on what people have written down about him.
Right.
Like, you don't know. You don't know what he's doing at home by himself.
As I've matured, Brian, I still really enjoy a good beer, but I'm not able to drink like I did as a young lad, going out and bottle sharing 15% stouts all day long. It would kill me. So maybe he was just a dude that liked to have one pint and chill.
It could be.
And that's fine, Isaac, where you drink however you are happy with.
He wanted that one pint to be about 50 ounces, though. But one pint.
Yeah. And so mind your P's and big old P's and Q's there.
That's right,
Isaac. So, Brian, again, things we absolutely love is politics and beer, when politics get into our beer. So this one comes from down under, the intersection of beer and elections.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. Informative. I found this to be informative. But according to Reuters, the Australian Prime Minister said that on Saturday that his government would temporarily halt tax hikes on draft beer ahead of the general elections in May. Apparently, his party is facing a decline in popularity, and nobody likes taxes on alcohol. I mean, really, the people that are paying it don't like it.
The government.
I mean, the people that collect the money, of course, like it, but nobody else likes that. What I didn't know before now is how aggressive the alcohol taxes are in Australia. Currently, the Australian government levies inflation index tax hikes on alcohol producers twice a year. That's twice a year. that they're
Hiking
increasing
taxes twice
the
a year, huh?
taxes
Okay.
on
All right.
alcohol on all producers of all kinds of alcohol. And apparently that's just an automatic thing, and I think it is tied to the party in power at the moment, and that's happening while the prime minister is also saying things like attending pubs is part of who they are as Australians. So yeah, you're kind of punishing them for who they are, basically, when you take it to
That's
its logical
crazy.
conclusion. So I think he might be onto something with freezing those taxes, but it sounds like it's only temporary. The tax increases will probably, it sounds like they will go back into effect in 2 years. So twice a year, your taxes on alcohol will go up and to match inflation. So that's great. It's not just a percentage; it's just some kind of index to. Yeah, that's fun.
See,
So
I never did. So it's not a percentage. They set like a flat tax or something. Because I know taxes are usually percentages
So
of
that's what's
things.
unclear to
So
me. What did
okay.
they say? It's an indexed, yeah, something that's inflation index tax, and they didn't say
All
percentage. So
right.
maybe it really is just a dollar amount, and it winds up being some percentage. But it's also going up twice a year. Like it's
Right.
changing twice
Okay.
a year. And that's what I'm noticing. I'm like, that's changing. That keeps going up. So
I never
obviously, yeah, percentages will continue as things get more expensive. It will be an increasing amount of it, but twice a year it doesn't make a big jump.
right. And that's my thing is I never understood increasing something that was based on a percentage of something else that was always already increasing. And I got much love for all of our servers out there, all our beer servers and our door dashers and everything. But Brian, back in my day, 15% was a very respectable tip
Yeah.
amount. And there's places that even the 20% now, it doesn't, but I don't get that. I do tip for good service. I don't want to sound like a cheapskate here. I mean, there's times, Brian, you as well. I know we've been out, we've tipped, service is great and all that. We've tipped 30-40%, depending on what it is. But
There's been
increasing a percentage of something that's already going up in price seems odd to me.
If we go to a craft bar a craft beer bar I like, or yeah, wherever, like the people, and they know where we are, and everything's great.
Of course,
I
we're going
just
to take
decide
care of them.
what I'm going to give them, and a lot of times
Yeah.
it's in excess of the 20% by a substantial margin. The whole point, people talking about increasing percentages are people who don't understand math. That is
Or people
that
who
is
just
what
want
that is.
more.
They want more, but they don't get how percentages work, which means they don't understand math. I think 90% of it is
I
people
think
don't
they do
realize.
understand math. I think
I
I'm going to
suspect
think
that they
they understand
don't.
math really fine there.
And
Yeah.
maybe they do. Maybe they're just
Yeah.
they're arguing, because the point always seems like, they're arguing. Well, shouldn't what we get increase as everything else increases? It does. It's a percentage. That's how that works. But no,
Yeah.
what they're
Right.
arguing is everything is getting more expensive. Shouldn't our percentage go up? Like, no, the percentage will cover that.
I
It's
want to,
it's a
I want,
fundamental lack of understanding of math, which is a problem the U.S. does in fact have. Is
I
we don't
want to
get math
just,
very well
I want to
anymore.
blow your mind here, Brian, that
Okay.
sometimes people will argue for things that sound ridiculous and fully understand how it actually works, but will not stop them from arguing in the other direction with it. A great example may be our distributors
Oh
and
yes.
the stories they told against the recent beer bill. They know the reality of it, Brian, but it's not going to stop them from telling their story the way it is to get what they want. So,
You're saying people.
because the distributor, maybe a lot of things, wholesalers, maybe a lot of things, they're not stupid at all.
Are you trying to say that people will lie to get things they want? I
They
have a
will,
hard time believing
they
that
have
would ever happen.
flexibility with the truth. Liquid truth, Brian, is what we'll call it there.
Very,
Yeah.
very liquid indeed.
Very flexible with the truth.
I still suspect there's a certain percentage of people who buy
I'm
into
sure
this
there's a
because
bit.
they do not get how percents work. And
You just
it,
like to think people are stupid. You
I
generally
also
do think
enjoy,
people are
yeah,
stupid.
yeah, there's a fair amount of that going around. I mean,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But there is evidence to support my theory that
Brian's
people are
like, yeah,
stupid. I
not just
mean,
making this up.
I am
We got the
studying this.
receipts on this.
I've made a lifetime study of this. There are in fact very stupid people out there, and I do have
Yeah.
evidence. But I continue to observe these things, Tim. Yeah,
You're an observant man, Brian.
I am. I
You
try to
are.
be.
You are. Brian, why don't you give a shout out to our sponsor? And when you get done with that, you and I are going to talk about three ways.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to hurry up and get through this because that sounds exciting.
Let's go.
All right. Can you believe we're in March already? And you know what's coming up. We're in March. Something really interesting is coming up. And no, I'm not talking about the day where we all turn our clocks ahead an hour like morons. I'm talking about St. Patrick's Day, where we drink enough green beer to forget about how dumb it is to turn our clocks ahead an hour. And you know who's throwing a great St. Patrick's Day party next week? Truck and Tap, of course. And on March 15th, if you want green beers, you got them. They'll be happy to give you one. They will also have cocktail specials and other mischief on hand. But if you want non-green beer, they have plenty of that too. And speaking of non-green beers, let's get into my beer picks for the week. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Toppling Goliath's Caramel Apple Fandango. Ordinarily, I think about apple and beer as being an off flavor, but I'm intrigued by the idea of a caramel and green tart apple in a kettle sour. And I think Toppling Goliath can pull that thing off because I've had their Fandangos before. They're really good. And I want to point out, it says green apple, but this is not a green beer. You could probably add your own food coloring and make it green if you wanted to, but it is not. I've seen the pictures. I can prove it.
The green's in there in spirit, Brian.
It is. It's only there in spirits. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Dogfish Head's Super Doppio off the side pull tap, and not just because it's off a side pull tap. Super Doppio is an Italian-style double Pilsner. I don't think I've ever had a double Pilsner before, at least I don't recall it. And so that's something I have to try. And yes, the name is a nod to Super Mario Brothers. They do acknowledge that, I think, in Untapped, in fact. But at Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Never Aloha from The Vale, at least in part because I don't get a chance to drink The Vale very often down here. So, but also because Never Aloha is a Hawaiian punch-inspired sour made with passion fruit, pineapple, mango, blood orange, and cherry. I don't even know if that's still beer, but I would drink it and find out if it is, in fact, still beer. So, but it sounds good. Sounds really good. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm doubling down on Dogfish Head with Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale. This New England Pale Ale is made with Kernza sustainable grains and granola. Of course, it would be made out of granola. It's Grateful Dead. And it is said to deliver tropical hop notes. It's one of those interesting beers you just kind of got to try. And it's cool to see Dogfish Head still out there making their wild and unusual beers with music references and things like that. So, yeah, I'll definitely get that one. And there you have it. There are my beer picks for the week. And don't forget, if you want all of the latest on everything that's happening at Truck and Tap, just visit truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. We love you guys. You're the best. Brian, as promised, three-way conversation.
Yes.
Not quite as exciting as we would lead on to here, but this is a three-way beer collaboration by some pretty interesting breweries.
Yeah, it's three Trappist breweries, so it's definitely okay. This three-way,
it's okay.
It's definitely okay. It's La Trappe, Tint Meadow, and I think Tint Meadow is in the UK. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe so. And Zundert, which I've actually seen one of their beers around one time, but I don't know them well. They have collaborated on a special edition double called 3 Rules of Authentic Trappist. And the idea behind the beer is that very few people know what it takes to make a Trappist beer Trappist and how it's different than any beer you can buy that's referenced as an Abbey Ale. Well, it turns out there are 3 rules. Surprise, surprise. The beer must be brewed within the walls of a Trappist abbey, to start off with. It must be brewed under the supervision of monks. And finally, the third one is that it must, part of the proceeds must go to charity.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It makes sense. It's so that if it does all those 3 things, that's Trappist beer. It's not clear how widely available the beer is, but it does come in a great looking 750 cork and cage bottle. If you can find it, I love a cork and cage bottle. I hope I see this somewhere because I'm definitely going to buy it. The bottle is covered with golden illustrations related to the 3 rules of Trappist ales. And of course, it is for a good cause because that's one of the rules. Proceeds from the beer sales go to Trees for All, an organization focused on planting trees. So that's cool. I like that.
That's pretty cool. Which brewery did they brew at, Brian? Do you know?
That I don't actually know.
And the reason I don't think Tint Meadow or Zundart come to the U.S., but if they brewed it at La Trappe, then it is possible, depending on how much they brew and if it's worth distribution in that.
I have seen Tint Meadow here.
Okay.
Very,
all right.
very small
Gotcha.
amount, and I don't know how old it was when I got it, but I've seen a little bit of Tint Meadow, and I have seen Zundert one time, and I picked
so
that
they
up.
do make it over here. All right. Gotcha.
I don't know who brings them in or how often we would see them. I'm gonna guess it's likely it's La Trappe. I've actually been to La Trappe. I think La Trappe has the capacity and the facility to do this, and I don't know if I could say the same for the other breweries, but it's hard to say. I didn't see any kind of indication as to who was actually brewing it. If it might be brewed by all three, in fact.
Okay.
I don't know. I see
Fair
it.
enough.
It's actually in Untapped. Here's the interesting thing. It's in Untapped under Mount St. Bernard Abbey. Oh, that's I forget which one that is. I was thinking that was St. Bernardus. I'm wondering if they may have brewed it at yet a fourth location. The three of them at
that
a fourth
wouldn't
location.
even be a three-way though.
That'd be a four-way. I don't know.
I don't think that's legal though.
I'm gonna have to get out my slide rule and check if that's even okay anymore. So
yeah,
but I need to look
Bernard Abbey. I'm trying to see. I'm Googling here, Brian, to see. I don't quickly see what brewery is attached with that. So, and I don't want to take up too much time on the Googles trying to find that.
Yeah,
it just says, "Oh, that is Tint Meadow."
Oh, it is Tint Meadow.
That's Tint Meadow. There we go.
Oh, okay. All right. So they did it there.
Brian.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I didn't know that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Brian, not really politics, but I feel like unions and politics are pretty tied in here. So we've got some union talk, and the Teamsters are going after Boston Beer Company. They're going after Sammy.
They're going, yes, they are. Well, sort of. I mean, they're going after a little bit of Sammy's stuff, but according to Brewbound, the Teamsters have filed an unfair labor practice charge on behalf of the union members at the Boston Beer Company brewery in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I think this is one of their breweries. Gotcha. They allege that the company is, quote, refusing to bargain in good faith, unquote. And that's a phrase I've heard a fair amount before in these various union stories.
Yeah.
Part of the conflict seems to be around new union members that have joined within, I think, towards the end of last year, not being put on the same pay raise schedule as the more tenured coworkers. Apparently, the last offer the union received in the negotiations also included wage cuts for some senior employees, which I know that went over well. I believe the offer was completely rejected by all people involved, like unanimously. Boston Beer Company representatives say that they have been dealing with the union in good faith. Of course, they would say that because everybody does. They point out that they've held 16 bargaining sessions with the union over the course of several months. Also, that they have met with the union anytime it has been requested. And from the outside, it's hard to know, I mean, who's being reasonable and who isn't, honestly. So I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens with this particular location. Will there be a strike, or will this just quietly go away and the things be adjusted in ways that make everybody happy? So I think that's part of the negotiation is we go to the press at this point in time and make allegations. And that's just part of the bargain, you know?
Some people get annoyed with me, Brian, that I don't always immediately back what in any situation, what would you consider the little guy, because the little guy's not always right. A lot of times he is, but to see exactly what's going on there and what happens. We had, here in Georgia, we had a situation where, some people tried to organize a union at Creature Comforts, and in the end, it didn't get the support to form, So, you never know. And there was a lot of things said there at what was happening, what was going on in that. I don't know what was validated about any of that. And, you would like to think and hope that the people who said these things believed what they were saying to be factual statements rather than liquid truth, but you just never know, man. You just never know. But I want people to be treated fairly. I do think that, especially these youngins out there, Brian, they want a lot more than they're due. I think they want a lot more than is realistic.
Don't they
So
always though, the youngins?
they do. Youngins are that way. That's for sure, man. That is
I
for
will make
sure.
the comment as somebody who's never had a guaranteed, and I've never worked in a situation where I had a guaranteed raise schedule. The
Yeah.
idea of that existing is kind of blows my mind, and then also the idea that you would get exactly the same as everybody that got it before you. That seems like if it were there, maybe
Well,
that would make sense. To like you should maybe be on the same schedule if you get hired into the same kind of role. But the idea of like the guaranteed raise, I think that
well,
that's a natural or normal thing in a union environment. That just seems so exotic. It actually does sound kind of cool, but it
well,
sounds so
that was
exotic
one
to me.
thing, especially in like manufacturing type of environments where the jobs are pretty clear cut. Like if you do this job, you do this job. That's all there is
Yeah.
to it. And many years ago, before my current career, which I've been in almost 25 years now, so that tells you how long ago this was, I worked for a power tool company. And they used Japanese manufacturing principles, Kanban, and
Oh yeah, the
all
Kanban,
of those
Kanban, yeah.
Kanban and cellular manufacturing. That, but they had a job board, and there was 4 different job bands, and within each of those job bands, you could be training, qualified, certified, or mastered. And there was different things to make those, but they had a written schedule that if you became qualified in job band 1 and 2, you made this. If you were qualified in 1 and 2 and certified in 3, you made this. So, in a way, that's really good because people doing manual labor in a factory, they know if I want to make more money, these are the things I have to do. It's not arbitrary to what this guy thinks or who your buddy is or anything like that. It's something. If you do this and you get qualified in this or certified in that, then you make X. And it was an easy way that if you wanted to move up, you had a pretty clear definition of the path that you needed to take to get there.
I wonder in this case if that is part of it, and if so, that
Could be.
actually makes a
Could
lot of
be.
sense,
Yeah.
or if it's purely a tenure thing. Because in some of these cases, I get the sense that if you're there X period of time, you get an X increase. Now
Yeah.
I know that works that way a lot of times with a PTO. Like if you're there for X number of years, whether it's 3 or 5 years, you get a jump from like
Earning
the
more.
first couple of
Right.
years, so you get more PTO. So that
Yeah.
makes sense. So I what we don't know the specifics of it. We know allegations have been brought to the public, so that's just.
Yeah.
I think that's just bargaining. I think that's just how they're going to work through
Negotiate. Get a
an
fair
impasse.
deal. Get
Yeah,
a fair
exactly.
deal on the table there. Sure enough.
It'll work out for him, I'm sure.
Maybe it will.
Maybe
Maybe. We just really don't know, to be
60%
quite
of the time
honest
it
with
works
you.
every time, Tim.
Every
That's what
time.
I hear.
Exactly. Right. O'Brien, beer and food. Here's something interesting. We're going to talk about a little beer and food combo here soon, but I'm curious how many people like to have beer with their meal. Because Brian, you and I have eaten many lunches and dinners and stuff together, and as you know, I don't like to have a beer while I'm eating. That's just something I don't do. I'll have a beer before when I get done eating. I'll do that, but I, like you do, enjoy your beverage to be a beer with your meal in that.
I still love a good porter or like a good amber from going
Yeah,
back 20 some odd years ago where those were big things with a pizza. Man, it's hard to beat, or an IPA with a pizza. Man, a good West Coasty one in that case. But
yeah,
yeah, I definitely do. It doesn't work with everything.
it
It really
doesn't.
doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, with a fair number of things, I do like that. It really depends though on a case by case basis. But
Okay.
I am very much more pro than you are on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And there are certain pairings that I'm like beer and this, a saison and a charcuterie board
Oh
or
yeah.
something like that is really nice. But this week, very specific, we're dialing it in. Brian's going to tell us about pairing beer with chocolate.
Yeah, this came out recently. It may have been a holdover from Valentine's Day, but I happened to see it. Heck, I think this was Charlie Papazian like reposted this on
Okay.
X or
All
something
right.
like that. And I
Yeah.
saw that and I'm like, this is cool. It these are things that I had thought about a little bit, but hadn't really kind of crystallized into a something as neat as this. So, according to an article on Tasting Table, the website, a common mistake people make when trying to pair food with beer, especially chocolate, is focusing too much on the fun and interesting flavor combinations. They might try to pair chocolate with like citrusy or kettle sour beers and creeks and something with an interesting malt profile, but tasting table, and I think they've talked to a food specialist or a what's the name of the person who pairs things, sommelier or something like that. Anyway, the most important thing to consider when pairing chocolate with beer is matching levels of sweetness. You're going to get your best results if your beer and your chocolate are roughly on par with sweetness. If your chocolate is noticeably sweeter than your beer, the chances are it will make your beer taste watery and bitter. If your beer is sweeter than your chocolate, your beer may come off tasting cloyingly sweet, or the food might taste more bitter than it should. So here are some recommended pairings that you can try to that take sweetness levels into account. So dark chocolate pairs well with stouts, porters, and Schwartz beers that are not overly sweet, or basically not full of adjuncts and lactose and that sort of thing. So on the drier side, a little bit more bitter. So something on par with dark chocolate. Milk chocolate may pair well with things like this might surprise you: amber ales, Irish red ales, or any beer with like nutty, caramel, and toffee flavors. I'm thinking like maybe an old ale in some cases might work well here, depending on how sweet that is. White chocolates and Belgian triples like La Fin du Monde or Triple Carmelet. I think I said that right. Those work well together. So white chocolate and triple, which is not something I would have thought of, but apparently
I think true chocolate connoisseurs don't consider white chocolate. That's sacrilege. I
yes.
believe.
And the
So,
article mentioned
yeah.
that. I
Okay.
skipped over that in
Yeah.
case I didn't know if we would have the connoisseurs and the purists here. Like
Yeah.
if you're it, I don't even, what is white chocolate? Isn't it just like vanilla
I
and
don't know. I'm not
I don't
sure
even
what
know.
it is.
I'm
I
not a chef.
asked Jason Pellet one time to do a white chocolate macadamia stout, and you would have thought I'd slapped his mother. And Jason Pellet was the brewmaster owner of Orpheus Brewing here in Atlanta, RIP, one of our breweries that is closed. But
Jason's still
yeah,
here, just the brewery's gone. Yeah.
Jason, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
Jason's still
Jason's there,
around.
just
Yeah.
the brewery. Not Jason's over in Belgium now, or
Yeah.
over in the Netherlands, and he's brewing over there. So
Yeah,
the
he is.
Hollow's brewing now. But yeah, he was offended. But like white chocolate macadamia cookies. Have you had those, Brian? They're
I love them.
delightful. They're delightful. They're delightful.
I'm
Yeah.
okay if that's not real chocolate. I'm
Yeah.
practical enough. I just like whatever it is. But I just imagine Jason emotionally eating plums to get over the
Yeah.
injustice you did to him emotionally. Uh, but for sweeter pastries like confections like your chocolate cakes and your candy bars, your truffles, interesting. Consider a Weizenbach or like a back sweetened framboise, Belgian quads, which are typically quite sweet. Milk stouts would be great here. Some smoothie sours would be good here because they're more smoothie than sour. Or even your big boozy barrel aged stouts. Those are ideal combinations. And Tim, you disagree with something,
I
yes?
disagree with that.
Do you? Okay.
I think it's too much. I think you're going too far, and it sounds kind of cloying. Like if you ever had a back sweetened framboise, they're sweet, they're sugary sweet. And then can you imagine having a rich piece of chocolate cake with it? Give me that stout. Give me a dry stout with that chocolate cake,
So
because
you like the
I
contrast
don't.
more.
I do see where they say that you can go too far. Like white chocolate, I think would be weird with a dry stout. I don't think that would be right at all
Probably.
there. But I think sweet on sweet, man, that's a lot. And I have a great example, Brian, an accidental discovery you and I made many years ago. We bought, I believe it was a walnut toffee coffee cake from Publix.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a bottle of a beer that Boulevard used to make called Coffee Ale, which was
Yes.
I don't remember the base beer in that, but it was a dry coffee flavored beer. And it happened to be the two things we had around at the time. And of course, that coffee cake was quite sweet. It had a drizzle, frosting drizzle on it, and that those two paired phenomenally. Phenomenally. And we actually in the future went out and bought that cake specifically to go with that beer because they went together so well. But I think sweet on sweet would be a little too much. What do you think there, Brian?
So this is definitely, it does work because I have had, many years ago, I used to put sugar in my coffee. I drink it black now, but I would put sugar in my
Yeah.
coffee. And I found that together with pastries, the sweet coffee, and I thought that was amazing. In that particular case, though, with that, I think the beer was a little sweet, but not too sweet. And the dessert almost sweetened it up, almost turned the coffee itself into a dessert, because you'd eat some of the dessert, it would still be on your palate and the coffee. So in that case, the two are mixing together. So you make a very good point. If you're eating the thing first and it's viscous, or it has a flavor that will linger, I think that will sweeten up whatever follows it. So in that case, I think it would make sense to go with something a little less sweet. I think that
Yeah,
if you
and I
go
think there's
if you go too bitter, I think it still won't work out well. But you make a good point with coffee. Coffee has a fair amount of bitterness, and that did work together pretty well. I do remember that.
I think there's levels to it, and Brian, and I think here, like I'm looking again, Weizenbachs can be pretty sweet though. I mean, those
They
can be
can be,
very
yeah.
sweet.
They don't have to be, though. They
A
don't have
milk
to be nearly
stout
as sweet.
isn't necessarily going to be super sweet. Even a big boozy barrel aged stout, but like a back sweetened framboise, that one jumped out to me because those can, I mean, liquid sugar there on some of those, so can be a little too far.
It
So
might
I,
be the case. It might be the
yeah,
case where if you had the chocolate cake and it was sticking around, and you had a regular framboise that is a little sour,
right,
maybe that would work together, but maybe not. I don't know. I think you would
and
have to try that and see.
that's the thing is I was actually thinking about that, and I do think that like a dry framboise, I don't think that would be right. I think you need a little bit of sweetness there to do it.
Probably.
This is complex, Brian. We're just gonna have to eat a lot of cake and drink beer and see what we for science,
Just get your
scientific,
framboise in like a dry one and put a little bit of sugar at the bottom before you
a
pour
little
it, and
bit,
then
just
you'll
a
be
little bit.
good. Just a
Yeah,
little bit of sugar.
good stuff,
Yeah.
man. Good stuff. Well, Brian, that about wraps it up for us this week. Anything you want to add? You got anything else to say this week, Brian? Just me and you. Just me and you
No,
this week.
no, no. I mean,
So
this would be if I'd been thinking, I would have prepared to talk dirt about Mo Mike Nate because he's gone. But I got
yeah.
nothing.
We'll let
No,
you each of you can talk dirt about him to yourself. You can come up with your own
exactly.
dirt to talk
Yeah.
about Mo Mike Nate. But y'all, with that, thank you so much for tuning into the show. We greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy what we do here, we would love for you to tell a friend to tune in and check out the show. If you really dig us, we would really appreciate your support on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beer guys. We're going to get you in the Discord server to chat and hang out with us, and we'll send you some swag and you will enjoy it. And so will we. Everybody wins, Brian. Everybody wins.
Everybody.
Yes, but with that said, we hope that you have a great week, and don't forget that I just messed that up. All right, here we go. With that said, we hope that you have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. I was so close to not making a mistake.
Nearly had it.
So,
Yeah.
so close.
We
Tyler
see
said
you,
he never
Tyler.
got. That's right. Tyler did tell us that we owe him swag. We thought we got it out there, but we've got to get it together.
Soon.
Yes.
Soon. It will happen soon. No, we
I
know. We
actually
know.
put we have to go by where our swag is stored and pick up some things, and we owe a couple people some swag right now. And we will get that out
We
very
do.
soon. That is faux show. We will do that. We are going to wrap up the live stream here. If you are a Patreon supporter, we're going to put the link right on over into the Discord chat. We'd love for you to come hang with us for the after party, have a beer and some conversation. But y'all have a hold on. Wait, I got to queue up this little video thing here. But with that said, y'all have a good one. We'll see you next week. Cheers.